Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So we are live now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Gnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshva Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare श्रीमद् भगवद गीता हजरत की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्री चैतन्य चरितामृत की जय। श्री नेक्टर ऑफ डिवोशन की जय। शिला गुरुदेव की जय। वर्ड टू वर्ड सिनोनिम्स, ट्रांसलेशंस एंड पर्पस फॉर जगत गुरु शिला प्रभुपाद की जय। श्री निताई गौर चंद्र प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। So hope everyone is doing well. Okay, who would like to start your realizations? Others can join in. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you, His Grace Ambarish Prabhu, Her Grace Pund Pagna Devidasi Mataji, and His Grace Krishna Samarpan Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for engaging us on a weekly basis in studying the scriptures and trying to think about our realizations, where we are heading. We are studying today Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verse number 5. That's the verse number 5 from the chapter Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. ऋषिभिर्बहुधा गीतम् छन्दोभिर्विविधैः पृथक् ब्रह्मसूत्रपदैश्चैव हेतु माभिर्विनिश्चितैः ऋषिभिर्बहुधा गीतम् छन्दोभिर्विविधैः पृथक् ब्रह्मसूत्रपदैश्चैव हेतुमभिर्विनिश्चितैः ऋषिभिर्बहुधा गीतम् छन्दोभिर्विविधैः पृथक् ब्रह्मसूत्रपदैश्चैव हेतुमभिर्विनिश्चितैः. Translation synonyms purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Rishibhihi, by the wise sages. Bahudha, in many ways. Gitam, described. Shandobhihi, by Vedic hymns. Vividhai, various. Prithak, variously. Brahma Sutra of the Vedant. Padaih, by the aphorisms. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Hetu, ma, dhihi, with cause and effect. Vinishchitaiha, certain. By the wise sages, in many ways described. By Vedic hymns, variously of the Vedant. By the aphorisms, also certainly, with cause and effect, certain. Translation, that knowledge of the field of activities and the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is specially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the highest authority in explaining this knowledge. Still, as a matter of course, learned scholars and standard authorities always give evidence from previous authorities. Krishna is explaining this most controversial point regarding the duality and non-duality of the soul and the super soul by referring to a scripture, the Vedanta, which is accepted as authority. First, he says this is according to different sages. As far as the sages are concerned, besides himself, Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedanta Sutra, is a great sage. And in Vedanta Sutra, duality is perfectly explained. And Vyasadev's father, Parashar, is also a great sage. And he writes in his books of religiosity, Aham Tvam Cha Tathaiva. Sorry, Tathanye. Aham Tvam Cha Tathanye. We, you, I, and various other living entities are all transcendental, although in material bodies. Now we are falling into ways of three modes of material nature according to our different karma. As such, some are on higher levels and some are in the lower nature. The higher and the lower natures exist due to ignorance and are being manifested in an infinite number of living entities. But the super soul, which is infallible, is uncontaminated by three qualities of nature and is transcendental. Similarly, in the original Vedas, a distinction between the soul, the super soul, and the body is made, especially in the Katha Upanishad. There are many great sages who have explained this, and Parashar is considered principal among them. The word Shandobhihi refers to the various Vedic literatures. The Taittiriya Upanishad, for example, which is a branch of the Yajurveda, describes nature, the living entity, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated before, Kshetra is the field of activities, and there are two kinds of Kshetragna, the individual living entity and the supreme living entity. As stated in the Taittiriya Upanishad, chapter 2, verse 5, Brahma Puchham Pratishtha. There is manifestation of the Supreme Lord's energy known as Annamaya, dependence upon food or existence. This is materialistic realization of the Supreme. Then in Pranamaya, after realizing the Supreme Absolute Truth in food, one can realize the Absolute Truth in the living symptoms or life forms. In Gyanmaya, realization extends beyond the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. There is a Brahman realization called Vijnan Maya, in which the living entity mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. The next and supreme stage is an Anandamaya, a realization of the all blissful nature. Thus, there are 5 stages of Brahman realization, which are called Brahma Puchham. Out of these, the first 3 are Annamaya, Pranamaya, and Gyanmaya, involve the fields of activities of living entities. The transcendental to all these fields of activity, the Supreme Lord, who is called Anandamaya. The Vedanta Sutra also describes the Supreme by saying Anandamaya Bhasyat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is by nature full of joy. To enjoy his transcendental bliss, he expands into Vijnanmaya, Pranamaya, Gyanmaya, and Annamaya. In the field of activities of the living entity is considered to be the enjoyer and different from his Anandamaya. That means that if the living entity decides to enjoy in dovetailing himself with the Anandamaya, then he becomes perfect. This is the real picture of Supreme Lord as the supreme knower of the field, the living entity as the subordinate knower and the nature of the field of activities, one has to search for this truth in the Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra. It is mentioned here that the quotes of Brahma Sutra are very nicely arranged according to cause and effect. Some of the sutras are aphorism are na vyad ashruteha. Canto 2, chapter 3, verse number 2. Natma shruteha. Canto 2, chapter 3, verse 18. And parat tu tachutreha. Canto 2, chapter 3, verse number 40. The first aphorism indicates the field of activities, the second indicates the living entity, and the third indicates the Supreme Lord, the summum bonum among all the manifestation of various entities. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai. So when I was reading this verse, I find it very technical verse, and as we all understand, Krishna is talking about uh, through Sankhya philosophy, trying to explain Arjuna about the field of activities, knower, enjoyer, and furthermore is going to talk about the effects and what are the other things which are involved in the field of activities. The first thing which came to my mind while I was reading this verse is Gitam that he described. Gita means the singing. Yeah, that's what we understand. Prabhupada writes here described. Bhagavad Gita is a song of God. Similarly, Bhagavatam is also verses are sung. The question, answer, and explanation, everything is by singing. So I was thinking that how come everything was sung? Nobody was talking. They were all singing. Even in the Kurukshetra battle. Okay, we can talk about field of activities, and Prabhupada writes very nice philosophy about all those 5 stages and our situation and Anandamaya and all those things. That's very fantastic. And but my relation is that somebody can sing when they are happy, and that's why I think Prabhupada has left that book of that Vaishnava songs, where it's collected those bhajans and songs, which are in a different mood, different written by different authorities, and Prabhupada has made such. So singing is something which stand out for me. Okay, field of activities, knowledge, everything, but where is singing gone? We are a preaching outfit. No, we are training people to devotees to become preacher, but somehow I feel that, and it's my inherent nature also, that this singing is missing. That's missing, and I don't know what's not right here, but that's my realization. That sing Gitam, we have no Gitam. We are only giving big philosophies, referring that, and the crux of the matter when everybody was singing, no, and even Maharaj also emphasized that singing is so important, that the vibration is so important, and then singing is Krishna himself, no? And then Krishna is dancing on your tongue when you're singing. So that singing is so important when Krishna himself singing this. And the other thing, when I come from a Hindi background, so we have studied Chanda and Gadya and Padya. Okay, the Shando Prabhupada writes in Vedic hymns, which is of course the same situation what he's talking about, various Shand, which means a lot of scriptures which are written, and he's calling it, Krishna is calling it a Chanda. And then this Padaiha, by the aphorism. And what is this aphorism? It means, so I was looking at what aphorism means. So Padaiha means when something is written in a form of poet. That's what I've studied when I was studying Hindi. And Gadya means when something was described, that purport is a Gadya. But verse is a Padaiha, by the aphorism. And when I looked at Google, and it come out that aphorism is that a concise, memorable statement that expresses a general truth or principle. They are often witty, through provoking, and can often insight into human nature or life experience, and yeah, blah blah blah. So that's not important. So so I could connect to this verse about those Gitam, those padai, those chand, that how Krishna is actually nicely putting all those big philosophies, that all those field of activities has been described by Vyasdev, his father Parashar Muni, and it's been explained by Shukadev Goswami so nicely. All this knowledge has been so systematically given, and I feel that this knowledge is actually endless. The more we dwell onto this, the more rasa we get, and it's up to us that what we want about it, what we want out of it. So of course, and the one more thing which I liked is that Prabhupada in his purport is writing very clearly about Vyasdeva is and Parasari is, not writing was. So for Prabhupada, they are existing, the eternal authorities on the scriptures. And in towards the end, Prabhupada concludes this various situation where he's differentiating different stages of realization, where he's focusing on Anandamaya. That's where we are all looking at. And more we get spiritual, more Anandamaya we become. That's what we are trying to practice. That's why we are all getting together every week, in spite of all those challenges, in spite of so many difficult situations, in spite of so many things happening around us. But this Anandamaya keeps us going. So that's what realized Prabhu. I know we can talk about field of activities, but this is my realization, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you, His Grace Amrish Babuji, Hare Grace Panpege Mataji, and His Grace Krishna Samarpan Krishna Prabhu for training us and giving us opportunity to study these verses and share our realizations. So, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verse 5. Rishibir Bahuda Gitam Chandobhir Vividhay Prithak Brahmasutra Hetu Madbhir Vinashitai. Srila Prabhupada Ji ki jai. That knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. So, first of all, thank you, His Grace Avinash Prabhuji, for your nice realization. So, as it is, Avinash Prabhu also said, it's very, very technical verse. Even the purport, Srila Prabhupada has given, I found it very technical and not easy to understand. Even actually, the subject matter that's described is again the discussion about the field of activities. So, we're referring to the body, and the knower of the field of the activity. So again, soul and the super soul. So the first thing is Krishna has already described these things in response to Arjuna's question. What is he wanted to know about the field of activity. So here again, Krishna is stating this knowledge regarding the soul, super soul, and the material body or field of activity. is already described by various sages in various Vedic writings. And Srila Prabhupada is also stating in the purport that Krishna, as a supreme person, is the highest authority in explaining this knowledge. Then and he says that as a matter of course, learned scholars and standard authorities always give evidence from previous authorities. So again, Krishna is explaining this, most controversial point regarding the duality and non-duality of the soul and super soul by referring to a scripture, the Vedanta, which is accepted as the authority. So the realization here on this point that actually, Krishna, he has all the knowledge. He do not need to refer to any scriptures. However, he's still actually referring that this knowledge is already explained in detail by various sages in the various Vedic writings. So my understanding is that whenever we actually discuss about these transcendental subject matters, and when we refer, we should always give the references from the authorized sources, like a Vedant or the the various Upanishads. So we also actually discussed in our program. Initially, Amrish Pur did mention that regarding the Praman. So I was thinking on that point that whenever we make any statement, even when we listen to Srila Prabhupada's lectures, and Srila Prabhupada always giving the references of various verses from Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Everything is always backed by the verse, whatever he talks. So probably this is a similar, the actually similar mood, or actually Srila Prabhupada is doing the same. He's giving the Vedic references and backing his statement by the Shastric Praman. So yeah, actually we have been also taught the thing that whenever we talk, actually, whenever we're sharing our realization, ideally it should be backed by actually the verse, or the instruction from the Bhagavad Gita or any literature, Vedic literature. So even actually, I remember Amrish Prabhu said that even when we give various actually verse references, Amrish Prabhu did mention about that Guru Maharaj always, whenever he give reference, he used to memorize that verse, completely, and its translation, which actually means I do not really memorize everything that I actually give the reference to. So as Guru Maharaj instructed that we have to first memorize and understand the verse before we give the reference. So this is actually the ideal, way to do that. Otherwise, sometimes we use as a reference and we forget about it. So this one realization that I realized, and then further in the purport, as Srila Prabhupada is actually explaining this point, that there is a reference from the Vedanta, and I think we recently had a discussion on what is the Vedanta, the Ant Vedant, actually the conclusion of all the Vedas, which is actually the Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentation. So for us is a Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a similar to Vedant, and also it is all these subject matters are also discussed there as well. And Srila Prabhupada is saying that actually the various stages, so the Vyasdev is the actually prime authority, even his father is a Parashar Muni. They are actually, they have already discussed this matter, and they actually making a point that actually all the living entities, they are transcendental. So maybe referring to the soul here, which are actually transcendental, always eternal, although in the material bodies. So I was actually, what is referred here is that yes, means we have taken the actually accepted this material body, and that body is given to us as per our past karmas. So whatever we have done, whatever our actually past desires in the past lives, actually we have actually forced to accept the body that we have today. So actually, when we have these material bodies, actually as a soul, we are all transcendental. As we always say that we are in one in quality with Krishna. However, there's a difference is being made that he said that the higher and lower nature exists due to the ignorance. And there are actually being manifested in infinite number of living entities. So I was actually thinking on this point that yes, actually, as I see, in this actually creation, we see there's various living entities. Some is actually in the form of the insects, some are animals, some are actually aquatic, creatures. So the material bodies are all different, even the plants, but the level of consciousness also varies. So even actually, I remember the discussion in Bhagavad Gita, I think, where we discussed that there are about 400,000 various level of actually consciousness within the actually human being, to as per, actually the level of consciousness. So they are actually, this actually higher and lower natures, so there is a differentiation, uh, and that is actually due to the level of ignorance that actually exists. So even when we look at the plant, I think I remember this one as well, that the consciousness is there, but actually is not, to the same level as we have the consciousness, in our body. It's kind of a covered, it's a pseudo consciousness. So even within the animals and all that, actually the consciousness is there, because of the soul. However, because of the ignorance, so there could be differentiation is a higher, uh, belong to the higher nature or lower nature. So further, actually, the actually Srila Prabhupada, there's another interesting point about the Brahma Pacham Pratishta. So there's 5 different stages of a actually Brahman realization. So this is first time I actually read about this point, that Srila Prabhupada is explaining here. There's a manifestation of supreme gross energy as a Annamaya. So actually there's a tendency to actually depend upon food for existence. So this level, that is actually very commonly seen within the animals. So especially the animals in the forest, they are always looking for the food. They are always in a search of a food. So I think probably I may be actually incorrect. So the Annamaya refers to that they're only concerned about actually finding a food, and maybe actually this energy of the Krishna is actually manifested in that form. So the living entities are only concerned about actually their dependence or existence depend on the actually eating the food. So that is again one of the actually Krishna's energy as an Annamaya. The next stage is the Pranamaya, which is actually talking about the actually the consciousness of the living symptoms, in different forms. So we can see the plant, even they are not actually similar to the animals, but actually we can see, they grow. There is a movement, but it's quite hidden, in one way. But still consciousness is there. So realizing this actually living symptoms. So when we compare the living and non-living, there is certainly this difference. So actually the realizing this actually the symptoms, so this is probably referring to the pranamaya. And the jnanamaya, Srila Prabhupada says, realization extend beyond the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. So probably these symptoms, you can prominently see within the human being, or maybe within the animal as well, to some extent, that we think, and we actually have the desires, and we have actually, we also plan as per, using our intelligence. So these symptoms are quite prominent. So that's why Srila Prabhupada is also they say that eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, is very common between the animals and the human being. So, they also think, we also think, they also feel, we also feel. They have desires, we have desires. The only different, actually, the important difference is that we got a higher intelligence, so we can plan ahead, we can actually inquire, we can be inquisitive, we ask questions, and we try to realize. And especially for human being, we have to actually inquire who we are. So probably this is actually referring to the jnanamaya realization. And that again then goes to the Brahman realization called Vijnanamaya, where it is said that actually the living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. So what I understood is that yes, actually there are living symptoms, there are actually, on the mind level, there is a thinking, feeling, willing. But however, there's a difference is that they get to the point where they understand that they are actually different from this build-up activity. So there's actually there's a clear understanding that actually the soul within is different from the body. And the Anandamai, the supreme stage, Srila Prabhupada is referring, is all blissful nature. And there are 5 stages of Brahman realization, which are called Brahman Pacham. Out of these first 3, as we discussed, the Annamaya, Pranamaya, and Jnanamaya, they involve the filled-up activities of living entities. And transcendent to all these fields of activities is the Supreme Lord, who is called Anandamai. So here, Srila Prabhupada always, mention this statement, Anandamayo Bhashat, So here, probably we're talking about actually the stage of a bhakti yoga, where we try to dovetail, actually our activities in relationship to the Krishna. And by serving Krishna, we also actually experience the joy. So probably that's what I actually realized, this from this actually 5 stages. So yes, and actually the last paragraph, which is referring to the course of the Brahma Sutra, actually I didn't really understood, those actually technical terms there. But I can see there's actually Srila Prabhupada, the last statement is say the aphorism indicates the field of activities, the first aphorism. The second one indicates the living entity, and third one indicates the Supreme Lord. So that is what I realized, but it's very, very technical, actually. Yeah, still, I think I didn't really actually, I think that I understood all this instruction in this purport. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you, His Grace Amrish Prabhuji, Her Grace Poon Pragya Devi Dasi Mataji, and His Grace Krishna Samarpan Krishna Prabhuji for organizing these classes and giving us opportunity to share our realizations and training us. And thank you to Avinash Krishna Prabhu and Sheetal Prabhu for your very nice realizations. So today we are doing Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verse number 5. ऋषिभिर्बहुधा गीतं छन्दोभिर्विविधैः पृथक् ब्रह्मसूत्रपदैश्चैव हेतुमद्भिर्विनिश्चितैः. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. That knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is specially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. As devotees have expressed that this verse is very technical. I found it very technical too. And whatever little I have understood, I'll just share my realizations. So we know that original knowledge comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, because he is the fountainhead of everything, and nothing material or spiritual world is without him. Nothing is without him. So as we know that whenever someone is giving us any someone is telling us anything, so we always ask that where it is written, who said that. So Krishna is for us fallen souls, he's giving the references so that we can try to understand that, oh, okay, oh, the reference is there, the rishis have said that, or the there are different there are Vedanta sutras or Brahma sutras which actually describe all this knowledge, that the field of activities, this body, and who is the super soul and who is the soul, what is the soul and what is the relations between all of this. So we always look for the references and Pramana, as Sheetal Prabhu has said in his realization. So although Krishna is everything is coming from Krishna, still he is very mercifully telling us that how Parashar Rishi has said in his realizations, and how Srila Vyasdev has written and explained about the field of activities and all this knowledge. So one point is that, and then Sheetal Prabhu has already explained that how the 5 types of 5 stages of Brahman realizations are there, and what is the lower level or higher than that or highest level, and what is the Anandamaya stage. So Anandamaya stage is the stage where which is Krishna's blissful stage, which we try to be part of it. And for that, the only way I understand is that lovingly chanting, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us the Mahamantra. If we can do that without any offenses, so maybe with the mercy of all the Vaishnavas and Srila Gurudev, we can get some glimpse of it. We can relish the taste of it, the mellow of it. All, as Krishna says that Vedascha Sarver Ahamev Vidyam, he is the one to for knowing him, for getting the mellow of his love. We are doing all these things, all these activities. The Brahma Sutra or Pada or Chand or anything is written in his glories, actually, so that we can get the taste of it. So the ultimate goal is Krishna and his love. And these are just the helping stages for us. So the highest to reach the highest goal, it's very, I find it very necessary that all the time there is Prabhupada's book reading, there is chanting, there is other activities for Krishna consciousness, which can help me grow on this path. And with my very limited knowledge, whatever I could understand from this verse, is that as Prabhupada says here, that that's whatever sutras are there is just to know Krishna and know his position and just get his love. So that is my realization for this verse. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Jai Shri Gurudev ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. I think we had a longest discussion in our Sunday programs where we tried our level best, according to my limited capacity, to discuss and understand the Srimad Bhagavatam verse on 1 to 12. Tat Shraddhadhana Munayo Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya Pashyanti Atmani Chatmanam Bhaktya Shuta Gruhitaya. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes the absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. So thereafter, there were some question answers. So we took the next class also on question answers, where devotees asked me questions about this, and I tried to give my answers. Because this is very important. See, I have always mentioned that you can bring down the whole complex philosophy of Krishna consciousness in saying you are not a body or spirit soul, a spirit soul are part and parcel of Krishna, and your only business is to love Krishna. That's it. Any complex can be brought into this, and that is why devotees always bring this down to this level. But when we have to give an explanation to a particular verse, we are fish out of water because we are bringing everything down to this level, which is correct. We are bringing it down to this level, but how it brings down to this level, that is very important. So we have to be a little careful. Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj had instructed me that if you are aware, you speak. If you're not aware, you say, I do not know. Because if we have to, this particular class that we have is where you're giving a class and people will ask many questions. So this particular verse, 13.5 and further onwards, here Krishna is talking about Brahma Sutra. So it is so important, Brahma Sutra. I have tried, based upon the questions that were asked to me, most of them were asked by the beginners level and intermediate level devotees there. Others did not ask me questions, so I give the answer accordingly. So that's why we are struggling now with this point. Prabhupada has given these answers, the whole purport, based on the arguments against the Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutras being misinterpreted by the Mayavadis. And that is the reason why Prabhupada, in the very first few words, first Prabhupada says that Krishna is explaining this most controversial point regarding duality and non-duality of the soul and the super soul by referring to a scripture. This is our clue there. And then the reference is given in the Tritaya Upanishad. Brahma Pachami Pratishtha means the 5 ways of realizing Brahman. You can see Brahman from his energy in the form of food that we require to consume. That's why when new people come to our program, we tell them, don't worry, you have prasadam first. This big philosophy you won't understand. Because this prasadam is touched by Krishna's mercy, by the mercy of the Guru, and that is the reason why it is spiritualized. Annamaya. Slowly the person sits, understands, a student. It is for all of us. We do the same way. Then we sit and understand that we should understand the difference between we are not the body, we are spirit soul. And we are understanding about Krishna, the Supreme Absolute Truth. Even it took us to understand about Krishna, the Supreme Absolute Truth, after such a long time of us being Krishna conscious. So this should tell us that how seriously inquisitive we should become. That's why in that 1 to 12, the translation says, Tasvadana Munayo. It is the seriously inquisitive student and sage. The seriously inquisitive student and sage. And as we discussed that, if we have come searching for the absolute truth, then we are seriously inquisitive. If we have been told, then we are not asked that question, you see. So if a person is searching constantly, then he will open every bottle, every stone unturned to see, is this answer? Is that the answer? Is that answer, like Parishit Maharaj? But if you have been told, then we have not asked the question. And we do not ask the question, then we are not bothered about the answer given to us. Whether the answer is coming from Praman or non-Praman. So this is where the 5 stages are mentioned here. So from that stage, one starts to realize and start to think about, okay, right, from Annamaya, the Pranamaya, energy of Krishna, starts to understand about this, about the soul, the super soul, and start to think about it. Jnanamaya. All these discussions we have done slowly, Prabhupada has given, especially in his books, Make sit down, sit quietly, no problem, have prasadam, arranging things. There's no money involved, don't worry about the money. Money has been paid by us. You sit down. Arrangements are done for you. Sit down. Think. Then thinking and willing, all these aspects come. Become jnanis. So from this jnan, we acquire. Then we have to implement this knowledge. It's called vignan. Science is always experimental. You put a thesis, hypothesis. Many of you are science students. I'm not a science student. And I also hate science. I was very poor in science. So implementation of it, vignan, is where one will start to realize the Supreme Absolute Truth. That is also equal to the Brahman realization. Once we touch that point, then we come to the Anandamaya. So Brahma Sutras, Anandamaya, again, in our understanding of Vaishnava personalism, it is about worshipping Krishna, the Supreme Absolute Truth. So Krishna is happy and we are happy. Because Krishna is always joyful. His bodily veins, the blood in the body, does not contain anything else except for joy. And even our bodily veins doesn't contain anything else. But we are covered with an artificial body. So we cannot understand the species which Krishna is in, spiritual species. Just like we may see an insect come into our house and we try to remove the insect from the house. But insect is thinking he's been attacked to be killed. So he runs away here, there. We're trying to protect the insect and take it out nicely. The insect does not think like us. And we cannot think like insect. Species is different, completely different. Human beings can be trusted, insects can't be trusted. But now even that case is going away. We may have pets, animals, zoos, there are animals. And sometimes we think animals attack just like that, without any reason. The species is different. Our species is different. See? So these are the 5 stages given here. And the sutras, there are about 555 sutras. Sutras are codes. So as I have written, as I mentioned, to my level best capacity, whatever I knew, on the Sunday class, that is Vedanta Sutra was written by Srila Vyasadeva after writing all this, but before Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada refers to here 3 sutras here. And Srila Baldev Vidyabhushana also explains these sutras from our Gaudiya Vaishnava point of view. So yes, it can get a little technical. This is why if we are going to preach, if somebody who's very scholarly person comes who understands Vedanta Sutra, he will draw us down to that discussion, you see. And we have to be very careful. That's the reason why today's our general WhatsApp group in today's verse 435, is it? No, what is the today's verse? 38. I was part of this class when Maharaj had given this class. It is a very, very important verse. In fact, in our, if you go to our website, WECAN-mbg.com, in the contact page, I have written this particular verse. I have given this reference. Nahi gnanena sadrusham pavitram iha vidyate tat swayam yoga samsiddha kalenatmani vindati. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has achieved this enjoys the self within himself in due course of time. So with this point, if you bring it to our discussion today, 13.5, from the first point of the 5, that is the Upanishad is mentioned, Brahma Pachami, Pratishtha. So transcendental knowledge, one achieves and implements it. Vijnanamaya. He comes to Anandamaya. So everything is related here, completely. We have to open our eyes and study very inquisitively. And this, as Maharaj says, real nectar Maharaj has mentioned in one of the quotes. Maharaj says that the real nectar, I tell you, is when you study the nectar from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And for that, this fundamentals of Bhagavad Gita is very important. And for people like us, there is also should be understanding of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because Mahaprabhu has said chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra is needed. That's it. Nothing else is needed. He was objected to by the Brahmanas. They said, no. Bhakti can be performed only by Brahmanas. You require initiation, proper diksha, All these things are needed, pakka. But he gave to everybody. He said, how can you give to Sudras and women and Vaishyas? How can you give to Kshatriyas? You cannot give to all those people. Because at the time of birth, Mahaprabhu says, we give it to everybody, everyone. Amar Agnar Guru Hoya. So this is how we should have a broader understanding about things. Then we can understand these things better. Okay. So please, if you want to, if you feel like, refer to the discussion that we had. It will give us a proper understanding, a bit, more than that is beyond my capacity to. And today's verse, 13.5, relates to that Brahma Sutra. And that is why Krishna is also referring to Brahma Sutra. It's so important. That's why he says, Rushabhir Bahudha Gitam Chandodbhir Vividhaihi Pruthak Brahma Sutra Padaishchaiva Hetu Madbhir Vinishchaitaihi. So by the wise sages, the many ways described by Vedic hymns, variously, the Brahma Sutra, that is, or the Vedanta, means Vedanta Sutra, by the aphorisms, codes, and also certainly that cause and effect. Why certain things happen, it doesn't happen. It is certainly understood this way. Because this is where the dispute in the Sanatana Dharma begins. From Dvaitavad and Advaitavad. And this is the reason why Krishna is telling us, refer to the previous stages. And is especially referring to some specific stages. And here Parashar Muni also gives information. And Vyasadeva is the author of the Vedanta Sutra. And Parashar Muni is the father of Vyasadeva, who has given the definition of Bhagavan. You see? So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to fight himself at every stage with every personality, Pandits, big Pandits, be it Keshav Kashmiri, Sarabhama Bhattacharya, Prakashananda Saraswati, and whenever they argued with him, he just kept quiet. But when he spoke, he did not mince his words. He says that by Vedanta Sutra, Shankaracharya has even said that Vyasadeva did not know Vedanta Sutra properly. How dare he speaks like this, he said. Now, if we do not study these things, for us, these are words only, So that's why we are trying very hard to inculcate this mood that chanting is enough to go back to Godhead. 100%. Because it's Yuga Dharma. And as time goes by, people are not going to be interested in studies. But Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj are studies. Prabhupada are studies. And everybody is allowed, Okay, no problem, chant. But most important thing is to understand what our limitations are and where we need to go. And never compromise on these things. Yeah. So all these different codes been mentioned, chandas been spoken about, refers to Brahma Sutra. And that Brahma Sutra has to be studied according to what the sages have given. And the greatest sage which Krishna is referring to is the Vyasadeva, who is author of Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra, who is his incarnation. Yeah. And then the three aphorisms which have been given, the codes which have been given, are again technical. But if we really has to study, then we have to study from the point of view of our acharyas. Let us give one example of it, okay? I'll try my best on this, please excuse me. I'm doing my best here. So the first part Prabhupada talks about 232, Na Viyad Ashrutehe. So it is mentioned, and second one says, Natma Shrutehe. So Natma Shrutehe is made up of 3 words. It is first part of that aphorism. So Na Atma Shrutehe. Shrutehe means to Shruti Shastra. Means Vedanta Shruti. In the Vedanta. And this has to be understood by Srila Baldev Vidyabhushana, who gives us this answer. I'll just open this 1 minute, please. So he says that technically this mentions that Natma Shrute Nityatvat cha Tabhyah. This is one particular code. Okay. So Natma is made up of 2 words. Na Atma. Na means not, Atma means individual spirit soul, which you understand. Nityatvat. Shrute, excuse me. Shrute is the Shruti Shastra. Then Nityatvat cha Tabhyah. So Nityatvat means because of being eternal. Nitya. Nitya is made up of 2 words. Nitya and Tvat. Means the soul is Nitya. Eternal. Cha means also or and. Tabhyah means for them. So technically speaking, it means that not the individual soul from the Shruti Shastra because of being eternal and from them. So here it is talking about the spirit soul being eternal. So technically in this word it is mentioned that because the individual spirit soul is eternal and because the statements of Shruti Shastra and other scriptures. So that means that this idea about the individual soul is not true. Means it is not eternal is not true. It's an indirect aphorism. So to understand this, in the Katha Upanishad, the reference is given by Baldev Vidyabhushana in the Govinda Bhashya for this particular aphorism. We mentioned about how Govinda Bhashya is written by Baldev Vidyabhushana as our understanding. So he gives this reference. Just 1 point I'll give you. This is from Shruti Shastra. This is from Katha Upanishad 1 to 18. He says that Na jayate mriyate va vipaschin nayam kutaschin na babhuva kaschit ajo nityah shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. So this is very close to the Bhagavad Gita verse. So here it is mentioned that a wise one, for the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. Yeah, same thing. Na jayate mriyate va kadachit. Nam bhutva bhavita nami bhuyah. Ajo nityah shashvatam yo purano na hanyate na hanyamane sharire. This is from Bhagavad Gita. But here the second one is different. Nayam kutaschin na babhuva kaschit. So he says he has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So it's our definition, exactly what Bhagavad Gita translation is given. So this is the proof he's giving that yes, the soul is eternal, not that it is temporary. That's what Prabhupada writes here in the purport very briefly, because this is a student, Bhagavad Gita is for basic people. Prabhupada says that the first aphorism indicates the field of activities. Na vidyad ashrutehe. Second, natma shrutehe. The second indicates the living entity. And third is parat tat shrutehe. So para means para prakriti, eternal. Of that soul, there is super soul, shrutehe. So this is how the 3 differentiation of the material world, the matter, the spirit soul, and the super soul is Prabhupada giving reference here. Just basic information for any intelligent and inquisitive student of this particular verse. The Bhagavad Gita is very basic. And more information is given in Bhagavatam and then Charitamrita and other scriptures as we study this. Yeah. So this is the reason why a little bit of understanding is needed in here. Yeah. And that's why I spent a little time on that particular verse. 2 classes we have given there. So I've done my best according to my capacity. Hopefully, this is understanding for everybody. Thank you very much. You can refer to the response again. And yeah, I'll try my best to give just basic information for now. Yeah, to our ability. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Gurudev ki Jai. Jagat Guru Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Shri Bhagavad Gita as it is ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Chandra Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. If anyone wants to say anything, I'll wait for 10 seconds. Thank you very much. Okay then. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hari Bol.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.